Hey there, Kindred Spirits. Welcome to Kindred Spirits Book Club, the podcast where two grown ladies geek out about Anne of Green Gables. I'm Kelly Gerner, and I'm joined here today with my co-host, Reagan Duffy.
Hello, Kindred Spirits.
And we have a very special guest today for our very special bonus episode. Today, we are welcoming Virginia Kantra, the New York Times bestselling author, to talk to us about her brand new book, Anne of a Different Island. Welcome to the podcast, Virginia.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm thrilled to be with Kindred Spirits.
Well, let's introduce you properly to Virginia Kantra. New York Times bestselling author Virginia Kantra is the author of almost 30 novels. She is married to her college sweetheart, a coffee shop owner who keeps her well supplied with caffeine and material. Side note, this is the most romance book sounding marriage I could possibly think of.
I know. Are you living the dream?
I am.
Well, she makes her home in North Carolina, where she and her husband raised three mostly adult children. And she is a firm believer in the strength of family, the importance of storytelling, and the power of love. And we are so excited to have you here to talk about Anne of a Different Island and to geek out with us about Anne Shirley and Ella Montgomery.
Yay!
Before we get into our episode, let's do some quick business for all of you. Come visit us on Instagram, please, where we are kindredspirits.bookclub for episode sneak peeks, bookish photos, and all our recommendations. You can drop us a DM there, or you can email us at kindredspirits.bookclub@gmail.com if you want to share your thoughts with us. You can also visit our bookshop.org storefront, where we've collected all our book recommendations, including this new one, and favorite Ella Montgomery editions in one place. And you help support the pod by buying books through that link. The other important way you can support this podcast is by rating us 5 stars and reviewing us on your podcast player of choice. But now, let's get into this episode. Virginia, we love to start our episodes with a quote of the episode. So, of course, we are going to pull one of our favorite quotes from Anne of a Different Island. In this little quote, your main character, Anne Gallagher, is talking about introducing Anne of Green Gables to a teen in her orbit. And she says, "This is what I did best, putting the right book in the right hands. Every child needed a story to fall into, a soft place to land."
I'm thrilled that you picked that quote because, of course, that's what Anne of Green Gables was for me.
Oh, we love that. And for us too, right? That's why we do this podcast.
It
Yeah.
absolutely was for us too.
And I love that your main character gets a chance to do that for somebody else too.
Well, so Reagan and I both truly enjoyed Anne of a Different Island so much. It was such a fun read, and we're really looking forward to this conversation. So as we talk about those books that formed us, those books that made us the people and the readers that we are, we always love to ask our guests how they first came to Anne of Green Gables or Ella Montgomery.
I was steered by a kindly children's librarian.
The
How's that for you?
best.
I was very lucky to go to it, to be within walking distance of the library. As I graduated my way from the Andrew Lang fairy book collections, there was a red one and a blue one and a yellow one, and it occupied an entire shelf. And I got through The Wizard of Oz, and I was, doing all the Beverly Cleary. And Jeanette Wormuth, who is no longer with us, but I remember her name, gave me Anne of Green Gables. And then, of course, I read all the Anne books, finally broke down and bought a paperback copy when I had spending money of my own.
Amazing. Well, she's a true hero. Children's librarians, right? True heroes, unrecognized heroes in this world, to know for a child, this is your book. You don't know it yet, but this is going to be your book.
Yeah.
This is gonna be
Here
your
are
book.
here are your people between these covers. But then look at the way it still connects us now. I mean, you invited me on your podcast.
100%. And that has been one of the most amazing things for us in doing this podcast, which started just as a passion project for Kelly and I to, again, geek out about one of our favorite books, is how many different people and ways we have connected with people, that Anne of Green Gables becomes this tie between us and so many different people that we didn't know. We didn't know they were kindred spirits, or this was just another way for us to meet them. And it's been really incredible. Like, do you think Ella Montgomery guessed at the time that she was writing it, that she would do this, that she would leave us this way to connect?
I think she longed for connection in her own life. Not that she was friendless by any means, but I think you can sometimes see in her letters that when she wasn't with her friends and loved ones, she missed them. And I think
Yeah.
that her life was not always an easy one. I don't know if she understood what she was doing, but I think the yearning for connection that she felt may have infused what she did. And that's one of the things that we all feel when we read the books. And I think it's one of the reasons that we can connect.
And Virginia, that is beautifully profound. And I think that the idea of the thread of Maud's yearning that goes through Anne of Green Gables and that thread sort of picking up all of us readers along the way is that is just such a beautiful image to me. Wow. I mean, what a gift, right?
I think it's what every writer dreams of, because, of course, before we are writers, we are readers. And all of us are touched whenever it is that we come to reading. I think there's nothing that we want more than to affect others as we ourselves have been affected. Writing begins in your head, and then you put it in words on a page, and that's half the connection. But it's not until someone reads those words and it makes a connection with their minds and with their hearts that you've completed the connection, like an electrical circuit.
It sounds like you've read a lot of Ella Montgomery's books. Do you have a particular favorite or, controversially, least favorite Ella Montgomery book?
So I'm still embarrassed because I have not read all of Ella Montgomery's books yet. So I still have fun things ahead of me, simply because of familiarity and because I have lived with it now through the writing of this book, which took about 2 years. I would say I have to go the first three Anne books. Of those three, maybe I'm less excited about number two. It's like, how much of the twins can we take?
Same. You and Reagan are in very good stead there together.
Davy, least favorite character.
I mean, we could get into this whole thing with little women and little men and characters named Davy, but we won't because we're staying focused.
But if you have not read The Blue Castle,
Yes.
you are in for a treat.
Knowing that you are a
A
reader,
romance
appreciator
writer?
of Montgomery and a romance writer, I almost want to stop the podcast and be like, we'll get back to this. Much more important is that you read this book.
I will, it's been pretty clear for me because I have been lurking in Lucy Maud Montgomery circles these days. And it's so clear that I need the Blue Castle in my life.
You
Yes.
do.
But it's also clear that it would be a major distraction at this point.
Yes.
So,
Right.
I fear that is true.
Yeah, finish all the promo tours and all the things you have to do right now as a for your career. And then as soon as you get a moment.
Yeah.
and then dive in.
Dive in. Reagan often says there are people who love the Blue Castle and people who haven't read it yet.
Yeah, there are only two types of people in the world.
Well, Virginia, of all of Maud's characters, who do you most identify with?
Well, that's changed,
Okay.
which is one of the reasons why I decided to write Anne of a Different Island. I have always identified with Anne. I don't think there's a bookish girl with a big mouth and a bigger imagination who hasn't identified with bookish Anne. And I love the way Ella Montgomery wrote the character of Marilla. She is not two-dimensional. She's a fully realized character with that. I love her sly humor. I love the hints of vulnerability. I love the love she learns to express, most of which sort of went over my head when I read the books for the first time at 7 or 8. What's interesting to me now is that I identify as much. I have the Marilla vibes now. That was why it was important for me to kind of approach her character by writing my own character in Anne of a Different Island.
Yeah, and we always feel this way about every time you reread it at a different stage in your life, it means something different to you, right? That
Very
you
much.
start off feeling like you're Anne Shirley, and then as you grow up, you're like, well, actually, Marilla was not wrong about a lot of stuff here. And
Yeah,
that's kind of a
I mean,
beautiful thing.
even Rachel Lynde has her moments, right?
She
Thank you,
does.
Virginia. I'm always telling Reagan that the older I get, it's not that I become Marilla, I'm actually becoming Mrs. Rachel. I know what lies ahead for me, and it is she.
Exactly. Kelly just needs a picket fence to kind of hang over to chat with the passersby
And an apron. I need an apron.
So
and an apron, a
the
good
ways
apron.
look at the ways she shows up for the people that she loves.
Exactly.
That's what we love about her.
The fact that
Yes.
she's highly suspicious until she loves you, it's not a bad quality in this world.
No, come
No,
on.
exactly. She champions and she's there for Marilla. I mean, she's a great
Once
friend.
you are on her side, you're there forever, and we have to respect that.
Yes.
Well, okay, so now we want to hear all about your book, Anne of a Different Island. So give our listeners like the elevator pitch style blurb so that they can go on this conversation with us.
Sure. So, like many of us who grew up obsessed with Anne, my main character, whose name is also Anne with an E, is a huge Anne Shirley fan. My book is about a girl who grew up on an island and sort of imagines herself as a modern day Anne Shirley. And she becomes a teacher and she wants to be a writer. And she finds a hazel eyed boyfriend who's a doctor. And she thinks she's doing the things. But then her life does not follow the plot line. And she goes home to figure things out and figure out where the line is between Anne's story and the story she has to tell.
And one of the things we love about that is such an Anne Shirley journey, especially for folks who have read beyond Anne of Green Gables, that in Anne of Avonlea and Anne of the Island, that is Anne's journey. She has to figure out what she wants in the real world that's not just in her imagination and her romance books. And it's such an interesting meta switch that your character, Anne, is using Anne Shirley as her kind of ideal, having go through that same process of what do I want here in my life, in the real world.
I mean, it's inescapable. And it's interesting because they're both essentially coming of age stories.
So tell us a little bit about your process of writing the book.
It was an actual joy. One of the things that, and it was a deliberate joy. I made the choice to go to this book that made me happy because I think there are a lot of things right now that can make us sad.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to talk about, I liked Anne's resilience. I liked her optimism. I liked the familiarity and comfort of this book that I knew so well. And I wanted to use that to talk about grief and to talk about resilience and to talk about what we do when times are hard. We were talking a little bit about the fact that Lucy Maud Montgomery's own life was not protected from grief or from hardship. And I think the fact that she was able to create such joy under those circumstances was very inspiring to me. Anne of a Different Island is a book about stories. It's about the stories we love, the stories we formed us, the stories we tell ourselves. This book was not written as a romance novel. It's actually women's fiction, but the cover is a gorgeously, and I asked for the couple on the cover because since this is not a visual medium, I can't show you, but the fact that it's Anne with the romantic interest in the background
Right.
is very similar to a classic paperback cover of Anne of the Island with her romantic interest standing in. Oh, you're
Yep.
showing me one. Let me show you mine.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh,
Oh,
I've got
that
that one
one,
too.
of course. For those the folks at home, the everyone's comparing their Anne of the Island editions, and Reagan has the Bantam classics with Anne in the pink dress, right? And the
And
her
I have Anne in the white and brown skirt with
They both have,
Gilbert standing in the back. I mean, it's just,
but they
in
both
fact,
have like the water in the background, right? You see the sea in the background, and they're standing on the land, and there's the love interest, like, kind of in mid focus. It's the exact same setup
it's the
as
vibe. You
the
want the
beautiful cover of
vibe.
Virginia's book.
That was, in fact, when I was asked to send cover inspiration ideas, that was on my mood board, and I sent that a shot of that cover and said, "Here's the vibe, people.
Here's the
This is
vibe.
what we're looking for."
Virginia, I think it's so interesting that you sort of helped us define that for you, this novel is not necessarily romance, it's more women's fiction. I think that label is kind of like getting blurrier and blurrier, and personally, like, I'm fine with it. But I do think the romance girlies are really going to love this one. And I will say that speaking for myself and Reagan, this is really the kind of romantic story that we love, where, of course, the love story is central to the plot, but also it's central to the main character's growth arc. Those things are happening together. Like the main characters are on a personal journey, they are learning about who they are as people, and the reason they can come together is because they've done this personal work of growing. Those are the novels that I find most emotionally satisfying. Those are the relationships that I feel secure are still going to be going on once I've closed the book. And that's very much the kind of story that we have here in Anne of a Different Island.
I'm so relieved and so happy that you said that, because I think that that's actually what I was going for. I think that the challenge when you're writing romance is that you have the character arc where the person is becoming more autonomous and more independent and stronger and more capable. And then you have the romance arc where they need to be vulnerable and learn to trust and to depend on someone else. And it's a real trick to sustain both for two different people. And so the way to do it, you nailed it, Kelly, because you said you have to be in a place where character growth means understanding how you can let yourself be vulnerable, so that to love someone, you have to be more, not to love someone you can slide in and be less. I really enjoyed writing the relationship in this book.
Virginia, you just keep blowing my mind. I mean, what you just said about how it is about both, learning to stand on your own 2 feet and also learning to be vulnerable. And that's the tension you find yourself in as a writer. That just is really kind of taking the way I think about romantic storytelling and like shifting it a little bit. So you're doing amazing work. Anyway, Virginia, what inspired you to use the Anne books, particularly these first 3 Anne books, as sort of your jumping off point for Anne of a Different Island?
Jonathan Crombie.
Yes, fair.
The best answer. Oh, we love him and we miss him. Oh, thank you, Jonathan, for the services you have provided to all the
That's really
girlies.
shallow, but
Not here. This is a Jonathan Crombie fan space.
It really is.
So that is part of it. But one of the things that inspired me about the relationship in the Anne series is that lovely line when Anne finally realizes, she talks about love coming out of friendship like a rose from its sheath or something. It was just
That's exactly
done.
it. Yeah.
It's a lovely thing. And I think the idea that you should be patient with love, which is different from settling.
Yeah, very much so.
But you should be patient about getting to know people. The people that you meet in real life will never be as perfect as the characters in a book. And that's where the growth comes in. To be loved, you have to love. I don't want to take away the fun of the escapist fantasy. I'm a girl who appreciates a Henley shirt and a hairy, muscled forearm and some good banter that, might have taken somebody folding an entire basket of laundry to come up with. I love all that stuff. And thank God I married a man who's really good at banter and has great forearms. But I also want to say that, I think that in exploring that relationship, I wanted to provide an idea that, you have the right to insist on the love you deserve, and you should give the love that you want to receive.
So one of the fun things about reading this book, especially as folks who are so deeply steeped in the Anne verse, is catching all of our favorite like Anne quotes or references and themes throughout the book. And some of them are right out in front. Some are more subtle references that maybe only deeper readers are going to get. Did you have a couple of favorites that were your favorite to like incorporate and to sneak in there?
Oh, heck yeah.
All right, what were they?
I mean, so there is a thing. I don't think this is a spoiler to say that there is a hashtag Green Gables challenge. So pretty much anything in the Green Gables challenge was like, I have to incorporate this, you know. And certainly, again, no spoilers, but the Lady of Shalott scene was such a hoot. I loved doing that.
We love a Lily Maid in the boat. I mean, you have to.
Yeah, and I think there were probably deeper and more thematically, there's Anne's tattoo. Tomorrow is a new day with no mistakes in it yet. And then I don't know if anybody but a former English major or complete Anne geek will get them, but there were places where I deliberately had echoes of Anne, the language. So a lot of times when my character, Anne Gallagher, is thinking about the bend in the road.
Oh, we clocked that because that is one of our favorite. And it was one of Ella Montgomery's favorite images. She came back to that a lot. And
Yeah.
one of our favorite moments too, that clocking that idea of what's beyond the bend in the road.
Yeah. And that was important to me. And so I revisited it a lot. And it was one of the things, of course, that the artist did such a great job of capturing on the cover, which I really appreciated. Nothing makes me happier than when an early reader gets back to me and says, well, you know, I've never read Anne of Green Gables, but now I really want to. So I don't think you need to have read Anne of Green Gables, but I'd love to think that if you have read Anne of Green Gables, you can go, oh, look at the raspberry tea or the, you know, whatever it is, and catch it. It's for fun.
Yeah. And that's like the best thing for us reading it. We get a chance to feel like we're part of that secret club who are catching some of those references and those little allusions. But as a story, it totally stands completely on its own. It's not dependent on knowing anything about Anne of Green Gables.
Well, thanks for saying that. That's as reassuring as the fact that you liked it.
So if we're thinking about Anne Gallagher as a modern day parallel to Anne Shirley, were there certain qualities that felt kind of quintessentially Anne that you wanted to make sure she had?
Well, and she needed the imagination. And I wanted her to be resilient and I wanted her to feel, I think, big feelings. And I needed her to be a bit much. A little over the top. I did think it was important to capture some of that over the top exuberance that young Anne has. Now, I had to be kind of careful because my Anne is 25. Things that are adorable in an 11-year-old are perhaps less adorable when you're 25. So I think if you lose that sort of whimsy, if you lose that extravagance, that exuberance, then you lose some of Anne. So I wanted to do that.
I think some of the ways that you made that age appropriate, I think really have to do with she gets into sort of a misunderstanding with her school administration early on. She is working as a teacher over an issue of providing books to her students that are not like pre-approved, I guess, by the school administration, right? She wants her library to reflect a diversity of human experiences and wants her kids to be able to find themselves in a book. And her school administration has a different point of view on that. And reading this book as someone who is a bit older than the main character, I was reading a lot of it and I was like, she is like getting so upset and so worked up and so emotional about this. It's like, ma'am, if you and your school don't see eye to eye, there's a very simple solution. Just turn and walk away. But like again, remembering Virginia, the impulsivity of Anne and how she is really shooting from the hip and working from a place of emotion and working from a place of principle and not always working from a place of practicality. That read so Anne Shirley to me. Yeah. So Anne Shirley and how she was dealing with like that conflict, for example. Age appropriate, contemporary appropriate, but the same spirit.
Yeah, and working from a place of idealism, the idealistic Anne who wants to change her students' lives and expects everybody else to maybe also be working from the same idealistic place as herself. Like that was the other thing I really read in that.
It's not calculated.
Yeah.
Right, it's not.
It's the opposite of calculated. When we're talking about the impact of librarians, I think the impact of teachers is pretty huge. One of the things that I admire about Anne Shirley is, you know, she stands up for the disadvantaged. She is brave. But yes, at the same time, I was going, oh, girl.
There's a better way to deal with this.
Right. she makes an impulsive road trip
Yes, I was
in the
thinking that
book.
too.
And I wanted to say, oh,
Don't
girl,
do it.
no,
Don't do
no,
it.
Don't do
no,
it.
no.
Well, that really brings us to this important theme that continues to show up in this book. And it's a theme that we also, Reagan and I personally, and as a podcast, are so passionate about, this idea of putting the right book in the right hands, that a great book can shape a young person's life the way Anne of Green Gables has shaped our lives and yours, Virginia. And with that comes this conflict with how much control parents or teachers or librarians or school boards or school administrators should have over what kids and teens are reading and what books schools should have available in their libraries. So, like we were talking about, that's a conflict that Anne Gallagher comes right up against in this book. And we would really love to hear more about why you included that theme and why that was an important thing to bring into this book.
Well, it's something I feel really passionately about.
Yeah.
And I didn't see a way around it because, again, I'm telling a story about stories and the importance of stories. And I grew up very privileged in this, as in other ways, because my dad was an English professor. And the shelves of our house were stuffed with books that were quite inappropriate for me to read. I was very lucky. And then I had a mom who would take me to the library anytime.
Yeah.
So I could always read. And as an awkward, geeky, weird kid, I could always find myself in a book and understand myself a little bit better and find friends, find
Mm-hmm.
people who were like me. Sometimes I would read about characters who were not like me. And then I would develop a better understanding of them, of people who looked differently or had different accents or had a different life experience. And so I developed not only a better understanding of myself, but a better understanding of others. I think it's so important that our kids not simply read excerpts of books to prepare from a test, but that they lose themselves in stories so that they can see through someone else's eyes, so that they can walk in someone else's shoes, so that they can develop the empathy to form these connections we've been talking about, not only so that they can be seen, but also that they can see. So, yeah, I feel really strongly and passionately about making books available to children. I think that books should be age appropriate. What I would love is for parents and children to read books together, the way we're encouraged when they're very
Yes.
small. And that shouldn't stop. I mean, if parents and children can read books together, if there's something that a parent disagrees with or that
Yeah.
a child is confronted with and confused by, wouldn't it be wonderful if they could talk about it?
Yes.
If the medium of fiction to talk about choices. You don't have to agree with everything that somebody else in a book does. And the parent doesn't have to agree with everything that some author represents in a book. But I think it could be an opportunity for conversation. And that would be good.
I agree with you. I think it's such a missed opportunity for parents to spend so much time worrying about what their kids are reading and instead using it as an opportunity to talk about what's important to them.
So, Virginia, I'm especially interested in which characters from Anne of Green Gables and the Anne series that you wanted to kind of bring to life or that you felt inspired by for this book. I think that Anne Gallagher's parents do resemble Matthew and Marilla, particularly her mother. I think shares a lot with Marilla. I think her love interest does share traits with Gilbert Blythe. And Donis, Anne Gallagher's best friend, seems to be a very clear Diana Barry analog. While we were reading, I also noticed that Donis has an Ojibwe name, which made me think a lot about a conversation that Reagan and I had when we were talking about Diana Barry as like the ultimate Avonlea insider when Anne Shirley first comes to Avonlea. And I couldn't help but wonder if you had kind of picked up on that as well when you were writing Donis as a character with Indigenous ancestry, that she is maybe of this island in the way that Anne Gallagher isn't.
I love that you got that, and I didn't think anybody would.
Well, I'm so glad we met each other here because I think that's such an interesting part of the Diana Donis character arc.
So, and the other thing that I did want to show is that she is rooted in the island in a way that Anne is not. Anne Gallagher is not a fostered orphan who came on the train. She grows up on the island in the same way. So then I was looking for ways to kind of explore the difference between them, because they both at one time have dreams of going off island, as indeed Diana Barry does. I wanted to sort of revisit that choice when it wasn't something that was imposed from the outside, but actually a valid choice made by the character. I did want to show her as grounded emotionally. So she's rooted in the island, she's grounded emotionally, and she has not left the community in the same way.
It feels like a redemption arc a little bit for Diana Barry, who didn't get to make that choice as intentionally as Donis does. I love that you give that to her.
Well, I'm all about the choices. I'm glad you liked her character. I liked her character.
There's a couple of moments with Donis that I particularly loved. When she finds her copy of Anne of the Island and she returns it to Anne. I thought that was so beautiful. It's a metaphor for their relationship and how connected they are, even at this time when adulthood and relationships and children have come into play. I loved the scene as they're preparing for Donis's imminent labor. Anne is sort of second guessing Donis's birth plan, and she talks herself out of it, and she says, no, Donis made a choice and I'm just here to support it. And I was like, thank you, man. Yes, that is an adult friendship. You got there.
Growth arc.
Well, I'd also love to get into the ways this book is different from Anne of Green Gables. Right there in the title, this is Anne of a Different Island. So Prince Edward Island is basically a character in its own right in Montgomery's Anne series. And so why did you choose Mackinac Island for this setting?
I was so happy when I was reading the Anne books. And so I wanted to kind of go back to that happy place, literally. Well, Anne of the Island has already been written.
Right.
Right.
I don't live on PEI and I'm not Canadian. What I did want to do is capture some of the charm. Even though tens of thousands of people go there every year, the year-round population is between 500 and 600. If we're talking about nostalgic charm in an old-fashioned setting, which is an important part of the Anne books, here was a place I could borrow. At the same time, it's American, so I'm not appropriating a Canadian setting. I also, when I was updating the story as a whole, Anne of a Different Island, I did want to capture some of that tension between then and now. So can I read you a
Yes, please.
bit? When you're writing, you're really looking for a setting that's going to be a character. I also sort of wanted to play with the tension between the life Anne Gallagher imagines she should have and where she is. There were three kinds of people on Mackinac: the tourists and day trippers who swarmed the island for 6 months every year, buying fudge and souvenirs, renting bikes, and taking selfies; the wealthy part-timers with their private airplanes and Victorian-style summer homes overlooking the water; and the locals who waited on them, who cleaned their houses and hotel rooms, who carried their bags and watched their kids, who worked for the stables or the park service. Oh, and the fourth kind, my kind, the ones who went away. So it was important for me that Anne have that tension between the idealized island of the tourists and the wealthy and the working class island that her mother and Joe Miller and Donis inhabit. So yeah, so I loved the setting. I was really happy with that.
We loved it too. Now we want to go visit.
Yes.
Yay!
One of the things I particularly loved with Anne of a Different Island was the ADHD representation, specifically the way that ADHD shows up in girls and women. And now you wouldn't know this, but I'm a therapist. That's my job. And one of the things I work a lot with, particularly women who weren't diagnosed with ADHD until adulthood, or teen girls who aren't diagnosed until...
I should have known you when I was researching this book.
But that's why I really loved reading that part, particularly the way that folks both misunderstand Anne and the way that it also seems to result in Anne doubting herself and creating this really negative thought loop in her head. What inspired you to bring that into this book?
Well, I don't want to go into too much detail, but I will say that someone I love very much was diagnosed as an adult with ADHD. She first questioned things that were going on with her because she was watching TikTok videos, which I did use in the book.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the interesting part of that was that as I was exploring this topic and learning more about it, someone I love who is close to me said, "Yeah, and my therapist would really like to talk to you too." I will say that one of the reasons that I was slow to recognize the ADHD is that a lot of the ways that, let's say, Anne Gallagher's mind works are very familiar to me. I try to include then practical coping strategies. A lot of people, I think, especially women, and you know this better than I do, Reagan, learned compensation habit. When I started writing the book, I didn't know she had ADHD.
Oh, really? Discovered that about her as you wrote her?
Yep.
Oh, that's so interesting.
Well, you did a really lovely job with it. And that was something that I really, really enjoyed, that kind of discovery of the way that some of the characters in the book that discussed ADHD, particularly in women. So we love that.
Thank you. Thank you very, very much.
We've touched on this kind of throughout, but one of the things that Kelly and I really love talking about is this idea of Anne of Green Gables as both an adaptation and an inspiration, and different ways that that shows up. What are you thinking of for Anne of a Different Island?
So I do not call it a retelling. I call it an homage. I was inspired by Anne of Green Gables, and there were certain things. I think I touched on her optimism before and her resilience in a time of grief that I really wanted to kind of dig into. And so I think of this as a kind of love letter, as a thank you note to Lucy Maud Montgomery. And that's why I can't call it a retelling. I don't need to retell Anne of the Island. It's been done. It's been done beautifully. I'm not messing with it. Although I imagine some people will think that I am.
Well, that's a question that like I'm always really fascinated. Where do you think the line is between like adaptation, retelling, and like inspired by, homage to?
So my last several books for Berkeley, Meg and Joe, Beth and Amy, The Fairy Tale Life of Dorothy Gale, Anne of a Different Island, have been me looking at the stories that formed me. All of them are books that are immensely important, both for the time they were written and the world they were written, and to me in my development as a human being, as a writer, as a woman. I look at all of them a little differently than I did when I first read them. As a child, or as a woman in her 20s, or even as a woman in her 30s or 40s, I have a different perspective on them now. And so when I do them, I'm bringing my own experience, which is different from the experience of their original creators, and my own emotions, how they hit me, to the page. And I'm saying, here's what I think now. Here's how I'd nuance that. Here's how the world has changed. Here's how I have changed. And I bring that to a story that is full of Easter eggs, and I hope infused with some of the spirit that inspired me to become a writer in the first place. Now, this is really scary because when you do that and you bring your perspectives and experience and emotions to a story, and you create an original work that brings you to the page, but with a very reverential nod to a source story, other people are going to find it. Now, that can be wonderful because there can be this shared vocabulary that you have. So the lovely thing about writing a book that's inspired by a source story is that you have this shared vocabulary. And when we're talking about this connection from the writer's brain and heart through the page to the reader, that shared vocabulary can really facilitate the story you have to tell. It can facilitate the connection. However, you are also coming to the same page with a different set of experience. How old were you when you read the book? What did it mean? What's the last time you read it? What's the important thing? What still resonates with you? Will have a different idea of what's sacred in the text than I do. Not on purpose, I promise, but I might not incorporate what you think is sacred, or I might include something that you find anathema. And I don't control that. I can't recreate the book. I shouldn't. It's been done. What I do try to do is find that shared vocabulary or that emotional resonance to engage. But it's really my job at the end of the day to deliver a story that stands on its own. And if you do know Anne Shirley, then I hope you find enough things in there to make you smile or make you nod. Or make you sigh a little, that we have that connection.
Virginia, why do you think it is that Anne of Green Gables keeps appealing to new generations over and over again? We're still talking about this book nearly 120 years after it was published. Why do you think that is?
I think that she's an icon for weird, dreamy kids everywhere.
Yep.
But I also think that the richness of the text and the fact that we can all come from it and find different things to respond to. And if you're reading it for the first time when you're 7 or 77,
yeah,
there's still humor and heartbreak and love and an appreciation of nature. And when Anne is not happy, she doesn't just wallow. Well, sometimes she wallows because she's a really good wallower.
She
If you're
enjoys
gonna
the
do a thing,
romance of
yeah,
wallowing.
but she grows up,
Yeah.
and even as a child who's a bit much, she's capable of looking at the world around her and taking joy in the beauties of nature and observing the world and observing people, so she can find kindred spirits maybe where she didn't expect to, because she finds good things in other people. How can we not love her? How can we not go back to that story? We need that story. We need her qualities of being connected to the world, being connected to other people, being resilient in the face of grief. I think she's just great.
In your process of spending so much time with Anne of Green Gables and Anne of the Island to write this book, did anything in that process of writing it shift anything about the way that you think about Anne or the way that you experience those books? Like, how did writing this change your experience of Anne?
It was interesting to see her growth now that I'm not the person I was when I first read the books.
Yeah.
I did catch there's a place early in Anne of the Island where it's like every single guy she meets falls in love with her.
Yes.
Because now she's beautiful.
Yep.
Where I kind of went, well, but that's okay, because don't we all want that fantasy of every man when we're that aged? Interestingly, I learned something about myself writing the books, which is that I have returned to my familiar and comforting place, and now I'm ready to see what's beyond the bend in the road.
Okay.
And I've started a new manuscript.
Exciting.
Well, okay, here's a question then, because we've talked about some of the other books of your heart, the books that have formed you, Little Women and the Wizard of Oz, and obviously Anne, and writing books that were inspired by those classic texts. Is there any other classics or formative texts, let's say, that you want to put your own spin on?
There are a couple of formative texts I would not touch if you paid me $1 million.
Okay, like
yes.
I will never attempt to do anything with the Narnia books, because the Narnia books, probably more than any other books, informed my worldview and my faith. And I basically have the faith of a 7-year-old child. I have nothing more sophisticated than what C.S. Lewis wrote.
Right,
and
right.
that is at the emotional heart of, so it's like, what am I going to do? What new perspective? It's like, if it's not Puddleglum stamping out the fire in the silver chair, I got nothing. So I will never touch those. I thought about Peter Pan. It could be done very, very darkly. I toyed with the ideas. I really did. And of course, I adore Jane Austen. I don't have anything that fresh. So I think I'm ready to write. I think I figured out what I have to say, or I'll figure it out as I'm writing. So I'm actually doing a book which is partly about the importance of stories in our lives. I mean, it's set in a bookstore, but it is not inspired by any one work.
Okay. All right. Well, we are going to be on the lookout for that.
That sounds so exciting.
Why is it that bookstore settings are like absolute catnip for readers?
Because we know magic happens there.
Because of the shared vocabulary. These are
Yeah.
our people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is our place. Absolutely. And it's about the connection.
Well, okay, we could keep having this conversation honestly for the rest of the afternoon and I would be in heaven, but let's start to wind things down a little bit. One of my absolute favorite details from Anne of a Different Island is Anne's tattoo. And she has the quote from Anne of Green Gables, "Tomorrow is a new day with no mistakes in it."
Yet.
Yet, all important yet. Okay, what Anne related tattoo would you choose? Whether it's a quote or an image, what would be your Anne related tattoo if you were to get one?
I think the idea that there's always something beyond the bend in the road, that
Yeah.
there's something bright beyond the horizon, infuses the Anne books. And that's what I would do.
Reagan, what would you choose?
I mean, I think I have to go with my favorite Anne of Green Gables quote about the one that says, "Dear old world, you are very lovely, and I'm glad to be alive in you." That's one of my absolute favorite quotes, and I think I would have something around that as a tattoo. How about,
That's exquisite.
yeah, isn't that just the loveliest line? That's just my favorite line.
Yeah.
All right, Kel, what would you do? Kelly, I don't know, Virginia, do you have tattoos? I don't have
I
any.
do not.
Neither.
I have lots.
Kelly has lots. So of the three of us, Kelly is most likely to actually
Get one.
an Anne of Green Gables tattoo. What would you get?
Yeah, well, I am very tempted by the bend in the road idea as well, Virginia. That was actually kind of where my brain went first, because like you, I think that's one of the most indelible images, especially in those the first three Anne books as she sort of like gazes out on the horizon of her young adulthood. But another quote that I really love is there's a line about how all things great are wound up with all things little. It's such a throwaway line. It's just so Montgomery, right? It's so Montgomery of her to just say something so profound. It's a complete like throwaway moment. But I think it's just a beautiful philosophy, right? There are so many things that feel so huge. And maybe they're the little things, and then so many things we don't notice, and they're so big, and it's all just a big jumble. And only with hindsight do we ever really know what were the big things and what were the little things in our own lives. I don't know. That might be a beautiful thing to have on your arm and reflect on from time to time.
I love it. And I think it speaks to, I was talking before about the way Anne Shirley and then obviously Montgomery observed the world around her and responded to that.
Yeah.
And I think that's what we're called to do as writers. I think it's what we're called to do as human beings, is to kind of approach the world with that sense of wonder. That ability to be present in the world is very L.M. Montgomery, very Anne Shirley.
Yeah. Well, we love to end our episodes with what we call an inspired by segment, which is sort of our recommendation based on our discussion today. So let's be inspired by Anne Gallagher, the heroine of Anne of a Different Island, and share some of the ways that she might inspire us. So, Reagan, I will ask you to jump in because I know you have a great one. And Virginia, if you have something you'd love to recommend, please feel free to share.
So I am inspired by the fact that one of the settings in Anne of a Different Island is her mother's candy shop, which sounds amazing. So I am going to recommend my favorite homemade candy recipe. This is a recipe much anticipated by my sister and her family because I always make it for her for Christmas as a gift. It is the Smitten Kitchen apple cider caramels, and they are way easier than you think to make. I do not mess around with making other candy. I feel like that seems very fiddly and also the potential to burn myself. But these caramels are so easy to make, take barely any ingredients aside from butter, sugar, cream, and apple cider, and they're so good. So good. I usually make two batches, one to give and one to keep. And the ones I keep just do not last very long in our house. So highly recommend if you want to make some candy, the Smitten Kitchen apple cider caramels, and feel free to hoard them for yourself. How about you, Virginia? Do you have a recommendation?
Well, only because you're talking about food, I'm married to a guy who can cook. And with each of the books that I do, he usually creates a recipe for the launch.
How
Yes.
cool.
Like you, I said, it has to be fudgy.
Yep.
Yeah.
So he has created a fudgy chocolate cookie, and I will be putting the recipe out there online as well as serving the cookies at my launch events. So now I get to read the Blue Castle, but not for 2 weeks.
I think for Virginia, that both these delicious sounding fudge cookies and the Blue Castle will be well-earned rewards. I am very inspired by the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. So, in reading Anne of a Different Island, it was super fun for me because I have been very lucky and I've traveled to that area of the world. I only ever day trip to Mackinac Island. I didn't stay overnight, but it is so charming, so idyllic. It really does feel like being kind of out of time. But I've spent a good deal of time in the Upper Peninsula, which they call the UP, and it is one of the most beautiful places on earth. It is all deep woods and clear lakes and all these charming small towns and this immaculate coastline all along Lake Superior. The last time I was there, we saw the Pictured Rocks National Lakeshore from like a lake cruise, right? So we were on the water and we got to look at those beautiful cliffs. We explored caves and all these cool rock formations. We went on hikes to waterfalls. We did deadly battle with mosquitoes. We saw the Great Lakes Shipwreck Museum. We ate so many delicious pasties. Pasties are a big thing in the UP, and honestly just had like the best summer ever there. So if you are listening to this episode and thinking about your summer vacation this year, and if you are feeling inspired by Anne of a Different Island, I think you should find a way to get up to the UP.
That sounds wonderful.
Really, I know. Maybe next Kindred Spirits podcast trip.
It's amazing. It's beautiful up there. It's like everything you want summer to be. Well, Virginia, thank you so much for joining us today. And if our listeners want to know more about you, where's the best place for them to find you?
Well, of course, website, virginiakantra.com. I'm on Facebook and Instagram and Threads as Virginia Kantra. And I have a Substack, which is actually a really good way. It's like a newsletter, but that's where all the recipes go. That's where the little anecdote things go. So find me on Substack.
Nice. We love a Substack over here.
We do, and we will put the links to all of those in our show notes. So anybody who listens to the episode can check out our show notes and find all of those places to see you.
And hopefully a fudge cookie recipe.
Yes.
That goes up launch day.
Okay,
yes.
Good. Well, everyone, Anne of a Different Island is out now wherever you buy books. So go grab this lovely, emotional, romantic book that will make you want to summer in Michigan and reread Anne of the Island one more time.
Virginia, thank you so much. This has been so much fun.
Well, you have so lived up to your podcast name. I feel like I've spent the afternoon with Kindred Spirits.
Oh, no higher compliment. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, Kindred Spirits, next episode, we are getting back to talking about Rilla of Ingleside. You are going to want to tune in to hear from our next guest, the phenomenal Andrea Mackenzie, who is going to help us learn all about what Canadian women were doing during World War I. If you haven't yet, you can rate us 5 stars wherever you listen. It helps more Anne fans find this cozy little corner of the internet. And if you email us about your review at kindredspirits.bookclub@gmail.com, we'll send you a sticker and a thank you note. Thank you, Kindred Spirits.